Ecosystem Game. The Ecosystem Game is the game that you will play first. It will take place either in a coral reef or on a mountain ridge, but the game mechanics are exactly the same for both scenarios, so for the purpose of this video tutorial, let us stay maritime. Maybe not. Your game will start with the tutorial in which you are familiarized with the elements on the screen and introduced to the game objective. Your task is to create a sustainable ecosystem by taking 2 steps. Task number 1. Choose 8 species that depend on each other in a common food chain that allows each of the 8 species to survive in the sense that it neither dies of hunger nor is fully eaten up. Task number 2. Choose a location on the coral reef or the mountain ridge in which your 8 selected species are able to survive. You can decide yourself if you first want to select the 8 species or the location for them, but I advise you start with the species. The reason why will become clear later. Once you start the game in the Coral Reef edition, you will actually see a screen very similar to this one. You will see the seawater, beneath which you as the player need to imagine that there's a beautiful coral reef. Yes, sorry, you really just see water, graphics are a bit dull actually. At the bottom of your screen, you will see buttons that allow you to log in your selected 8 species and your chosen location and to submit your solution. At the top right, you will find the so-called monitor, which reports to you the ecological conditions of the different locations available in the coral reef or in fact anywhere on the screen. For the coral reef, the various locations are described by 7 different parameters, namely depth, water current, water clarity, temperature, salt content, dissolved oxygen and wind speed. In the mountain ridge scenario, you will find as parameters elevation, temperature, wind speed, humidity, cloud cover, soil pH value and precipitation. You may even sometimes see an 8th condition, but whether it is 7 or 8 conditions, you will soon see that does not matter at all. To create confusion, the game restricts you to be able to view only up to 4 parameters at a time instead of all of them. So how it works is that actually when you hover the location spot over the screen, all 7 parameters will change for every single pixel on your screen, but you can observe the changes only for 4 parameters at a time. You can at any time change your selection of which 4 parameters you like to observe. On the left part of your screen, you can open a guidebook with the rules of the game, but actually you do not want to spend any time on reading the instructions again when your time is running. You should have done that already during the untimed tutorial at the beginning of the game. However, in the guidebook, you also find the descriptions of all species of the game, the candidates that you need to select your 8 surviving species from. Like in an animal lover's photo album, for each of the species in the game, you are given a little image and then a couple of information. In each game, you will be confronted with 39 different species. So, there you go, poor fellow, wanting to join the world's largest management consulting firm, but now you need to fiddle through 39 weird species profiles. And you are able to view only 1 or 2 descriptions at a time, given the limited screen size, so you need to scroll down to see them all. You are drowning in data, which nicely fits the game's theme, and which is the situation that McKinsey wants to put you in. This actually is a realistic setting for how you feel at the beginning of many consulting projects. You are overwhelmed with data, but are yet unable to discern which one is important and which one you can discard. Also, data in the game comes in weird, impractical shapes that are difficult to process. This is where you stand as somebody with no previous knowledge of the game. However, you are watching this video and I will now show you how to crack the game so that you have a huge head start when playing it. Diving deeper. Let me go more in detail now. Each game comes with 39 species candidates you need to select your 8 species from. There are 2 different categories among the 39 species, animals and producers. 30 of the 39 species are animals. Let me start with the animal card. For this example, I baptized this animal a buck-wheel sea lion. If you think this name sounds silly, yeah, all species names in this game sound silly. Each animal is accompanied by an image, which are all completely irrelevant. Aesthetics don't matter in this game. Now, let's move on to the characteristics of an animal. Each animal card tells you under which ecological conditions the animal can live. In this example, it could live in a depth range between 21 to 30 meters and at a temperature range of 27.1 to 30.3 degrees Celsius. These two parameters relate to the ones shown in your monitor. In your game, you may or may not see a second line with environmental conditions. In this example I've created for you, you find salt concentration and oxygen content. As you can already see from this, McKinsey tries to confuse you again because normally these two lines of course should be positioned below each other. Now getting to the meat and potatoes, the top line of an animal card will report the animal's calories needed and the animal's calories provided. There's no reference period such as per turn or per year. Each animal just eats once per game and that's it. In another line, you will find the animal's predators that it is eaten by, as well as its food sources. All 30 animal cards in your game have the same structure. There's a second type of species in your game. 9 of the 39 species are producers. Each producer comes with a species card too. Let us introduce the orange seaweed. You will see that the producer's cards have the same structure as the animal cards, but come with two major differences. Producers do not need any calories because they just feed on generic resources such as sunlight or waste. The idea is that producers represent plant-based food resources that stand at the beginning of a food chain that you need to build. You will find that some producers in the actual game actually are defined to live in a sea depth of 90 meters. And I wonder how much sunlight reaches them there. But hey, you apply to a management consulting firm and not to a marine biology think tank. These actually are the main elements that you need to interact with during the game. And before I move on, if you like this video and find it useful, please smash the like button and subscribe to my UN Consulting channel for further top quality content on your business and consulting careers. The food chain, rules and example. I need to make you familiar with the rules of the game, in particular the food chain rules. You need to understand the food chain rules in order to be able to select 8 surviving species from the deck of 39, which, you remember, is your first task for the game. Task number 1, choose 8 species that depend on each other in a common food chain that allows each of the 8 species to survive in the sense that it neither dies of hunger nor is fully eaten up. You will be presented with the food chain rules in the tutorial as well, but they are intricate, so I suggest you to familiarize yourself with them way before you start the game. I will show you an example in a moment. Let me first summarize for you the 6 food chain rule statements. The species with the highest calories provided in the food chain eats first. Among the available food sources that the eating species can choose from, it always chooses to eat from the food source with the currently highest calories provided. When a species eats, the calories provided of its food source are reduced by the eating species' calories needed. If 2 food sources of the eating species currently provide an equal amount of calories, the eating species will split its calories needed equally between the two, so that each of the 2 food sources' calories provided are diminished by half of the eating species' calories needed. If the eating species' calories needed exceed the calories provided by its food source, it will fully consume those and it will continue eating from a second food source if available. This rule I found a little stupid because whenever the calories needed of a predator exceed those of its food source, the food source dies and you lose the game. Because all your 8 species need to survive as a system. So the rule should rather be make sure that the food source's calories provided always exceed the predator's calories needed, or otherwise you lose the game. Last rule. Once the first species in your food chain has eaten, next the species among the remaining species that now has the currently highest calories provided will eat, until all species in the food chain have eaten once. To win the game, you need to make sure that once all 8 species have eaten, all their calories needed have been completely served, that is, have been reduced to 0, while simultaneously all species' remaining calories provided are still greater than 0. You may pause the video here for a moment to internalize these rules. I promise it will all become clearer after I have taken you through the following example. Let us go through an example of a food chain of 8 species and check if it is sustainable. At the bottom, you see 3 producers. You will find out later that actually in all food chains you will build, you will find 3 producers and 5 animals. I will explain you later why this is the case. You can see that your producers live off sun and waste and so do not need any calories but only provide calories. In contrast, the 5 animals all need and provide calories. Furthermore, I've noted the animals' food sources. You can see in this example that animals 5 and 4 can also feed off further animals 6, 7 and 8 respectively, but these food sources have not been selected for this food chain of 8 species, so are not available. So, to make it a bit easier, I discard those numbers. And to make it even easier for you, I add red arrows indicating the food sources or the species an animal can prey on. Now, let us apply the rules. The species with the highest calories provided starts eating. In this example, that would be producer A with 5,500 calories. But we already know it just sunbathes. We can actually skip all 3 producers. Now, the first animal starts eating. Please note, it is never the hungry species that starts eating, so calories needed do not matter for the eating order. It is always the species with the currently highest calories provided that eats next. In this case, it is animal 2. In this food chain, animal 2 only has animal 1 it can prey on, and so it does. It stills its hunger of 3,300 calories needed, and the calories provided of animal 1 shrink by 3,300. Next in line is animal 3, which has 3,900 calories provided. It drags its 4,500 calories needed from producer B. Now it is animal 4's turn to eat. It has 2 food sources available and it will eat from animal 3, since it currently provides more calories than animal 5. That is good news, because if animal 4 were to eat from animal 5 would die and the game be lost, because the food chain would not be sustainable. So, animal 4 diminishes animal 3's calories provided by 3,800 calories. Note that the next animal to eat is not animal 1. It used to have higher calories provided than animal 5 at the beginning of the feast, but not anymore. It is animal 5's turn to eat from producer C. 4,000 minus 3,200 results in 800 remaining calories provided. The final meal is taken by animal 1. It has 2 food sources available, but it will surely eat from producer A since it has the currently highest calories provided available. That is good news, because otherwise animal 1 would kill producer B. Producer A provides 4,000 calories to animal 1. Voila! All animals have eaten and are satisfied, and no species had to die for that. All 8 species will survive and happily live together until the end of their lives. Congratulations, this food chain is sustainable. Note that you do not need to build a singular and linear food chain from the top to the bottom. As long as you identify 8 species that can somehow coexist with each other without dying, you have done your job. How to win, number 1. The trial and error approach. Well, this looked almost too easy, right? So much on the setup and the rules of a game. How can you win it? Let me follow up with my strategy advice on how to crack the ecosystem game. In my view, there are 2 meta approaches you can choose from to play the game, and I call them first, the trial and error approach, and second, the safe or professional approach to pass it. Let me start with the trial and error approach. So I told you already that there are 39 species in each game, out of which 9 are producers and 30 animals. Let me now share some further deeper insights with you. When I first playtested the ecosystem game through a simulation, I thought like, hey, why can I not just select 8 producers? They peacefully coexist next to each other and nobody eats up anybody else. The problem is, you will not find 8 producers in your game that can survive at the same location, or put differently, can live in the same environmental conditions. Let me pull out the two example species cards again, and let us now move the spotlight to the species living conditions. When you study the 39 species cards, you will find that, if it appears in your game, the bottom environmental conditions line should be the same for all 39 species. In this example, all species live and survive within the same salt concentration and oxygen content ranges. This serves just as further white noise to confuse you, the poor candidate. So you can ignore this line until the end of the game. The upper line featuring environmental conditions is important though. Unless McKinsey changes this at some point, the line should feature depth in the coral reef scenario or elevation in the mountain ridge scenario and temperature. These two conditions do bear some importance because when you flip through a deck of the 39 cards, they do vary to some extent. You will find that across the 39 species, each of the two parameters will appear with only 3 distinctive parameter ranges. These could look like these, though it is even better. The two parameters together appear in only 3 combinations. So you will find species living at this depth and this temperature, but only in these pairings. There will, for instance, be no species living in a depth of 11 to 20 meters, but at a temperature range of 21.1 to 30.3 degrees Celsius. So we can further simplify and conclude there actually only exist 3 different ecosystems you can build. For convenience, let me refer to them as ecosystems A, B and C. And it gets even better. You will find that exactly 3 producers are able to live in ecosystem A, 3 producers in ecosystem B, and 3 producers in ecosystem C. The same split applies to the 30 animals. 10 can survive in ecosystem A, 10 thrive in ecosystem B, and 10 live in ecosystem C. Beautiful. How can you now exploit these regularities? Well, my strategy advice is to begin your game by flipping through the 9 producer cards. You will find out which 3 ecosystem types A, B and C exist soon. Essentially, this leaves you with 3 species bundles to choose from. Each bundle has 13 species, for which you will need to select 8 species to build a food chain. Which bundle should you choose? As a rule of thumb, your best pick probably is to pick the bundle in which the sum of calories provided across the 3 producers together is the largest. Remember that the calories provided always must be larger than the predators needed, so a high calorific value increases the probability that your base of rich producers can hopefully accommodate a sustainable food chain. There is a further complication though to be paid attention to, namely by how many species the producers can be eaten. If in your bundle of 3 producers there's a producer that cannot be eaten by any animal, I suggest to discard the bundle regardless of the calorie sum, because that happy plant is not going to feed anyone and, for the game, completely useless. So let us assume you have digged yourself through the producer cards and selected your 3 producers. How to go next? While it is possible to build the food chains from the top to the bottom, I prefer to build them bottom up and start from the producers. Now though, the trial and error part starts. You hopefully have your pen and paper in front of you where you note down the 3 producers you have selected. Now you still need to pick 5 animals from the 10 animals in your bundle and somehow arrange them in a way they do not eat each other up, and their information is hidden in these fiddly cards. This unfortunately becomes very murky and is where many candidates fail, not least because they still need to digest the food chain rules, understand which data is needed, and somehow need to improvise the food chain. I want to explain you why this approach is risky. For this, let us go back to our previously sustainable food chain. We will find that it actually is rather fragile. We said that animal 2 wants to start the party, consuming 3,300 calories of what animal 1 would provide. However, if animal 1 was less equipped by only 200 calories or more, it would die by animal 2's hunger. The food chain would not be sustainable. Let us look at some other complications. Let us assume that producer C was even richer than in the base scenario, and instead of 4,000, it provided even 5,000 calories. Good news, no? Great. I warp us to the second step where animal 3 will eat. Previously, it would satisfy its hunger exclusively from producer B alone. In this scenario though, as per the special rule, if there are food sources that provide the same amount of calories, the eating species will consume from both food sources equally to satisfy its hunger. In this case, producer B's calories provided will be reduced by only 2,250 calories, half of the calories needed by animal 3. The same will happen to producer C. As before, animal 4 will eat from animal 3 and all good. However, something will change for animal 5. It can only consume from producer C, whose calories provided have already been diminished by animal 3. When animal 5 eats, it will fully consume producer C, but still die of hunger itself. I'm afraid I'm not yet done with the complications. Another scenario. You will be confronted with animals that are not eaten by any other of the 10 animals, but can eat all other 9 animals in the bundle. That makes them called a top predator. Let us assume that animal 2 turns into such a top predator. It would eat all other animals from your bundle of 10 animals. This means we also have to add some red arrows. Previously, animal 2 could only eat animal 1. Now it has free choice and, according to the rules of the game, will choose animal 3, whose calories provided decrease by the 3,300 calories needed by top predator animal 2. In the original scenario, it was animal 3 who ate second. However, now animal 4 will eat first because animal 3's calories provided have dropped to 600. Animal 4 has 2 food sources and it will turn to the animal with the highest calories provided. This now is not anymore animal 3 like before, but animal 5. Its appetite can however not be satisfied by animal 5's meager 2000 calories provided. After eating up animal 5, it will also consume the remainder of animal 3, which still provides 600 calories. Animal 4 has killed both animals 3 and 5, but it will still die of hunger itself. What a disaster! I hope these examples illustrate how fragile the food chains are. When you face these problems, you will have to try wriggling around and hope to find a way out. There's one scenario though that is the worst of all. You may be dealt a game in which you have selected the ecosystem that at first looked the most attractive, with the 3 producers providing together the most calories. When you keep trying to work out a sustainable food chain, but it just does not work out, you keep trying until your time is up. The reason for this is that for some ecosystem bundles there does not exist any sustainable food chain to create from your set of 13 species, not even in theory. In different words, you may pick an ecosystem bundle that looks attractive at first, but it is impossible to create a sustainable solution for it. You only have little time available though, and while you desperately fiddle around with the species in your bundle, you cannot know if you are doing mistakes or if a game itself is to blame and has dealt you lemons. Of course, this is not fair. Note that the game parameters are set randomly for each new game and candidate and are strongly doubt that the game rewards you for being an unlucky candidate. Now, this is a sad moment of the video, but rescue shall soon await you. For now, I'd just like to remind you to please destroy the like button if you find this video useful and to subscribe to my UN Consulting channel for further top quality career advice. If you activate the bell icon, you'll receive a notification when I upload a new video. This scene accurately described what McKinsey consultants do after leaving McKinsey. How to win number 2, the safe approach. So, back to the misery. What can you do? This question brings me to the second approach to tackle this game, which I call the safe or professional approach. This second approach is designed to take you on autopilot and in very little time towards a sustainable food chain and winning the ecosystem game. How does it work? Well, a non-significant part of the difficulty of a game arises from the fact that the many data points you are confronted with are terribly scattered across all these 39 cards, which you cannot view simultaneously. So, what does the management consultant do? He cleans the data up and then runs a computation to obtain the results. For the safe approach, you use a Microsoft Excel solver. If you have not yet worked much with Excel, it may look a bit intimidating at first, but trust me, the tool actually is really easy to use as it is readily designed and you just need to copy and paste into it. How do you use it? At the beginning, you take the same steps as I suggested before. You go through a deck of 9 producers and copy their characteristics into the first table here. This actually is rather easy because there are only 3 sets of parameter conditions you need to copy-paste for the 9 producers, so the only figure in which the producers really differ from each other is their calories provided. Like before, I suggest to then pick the ecosystem where the producers provide the largest sum of calories as long as the producers can be eaten by at least 1 or better more animals. The decision on which 3 producers you want to pick for the foundation of your food chain already predetermines which location you will most likely pick for your final 8 species selected, but more on that in a moment. Now, you need to copy and paste the data of only those 10 animals that can live under the same conditions as the 3 producers. You can completely ignore the other 20 animals, drastically reducing complexity. As the third data entry step, for those 10 animals in your ecosystem, you need to record their food sources they can eat from. Now the magic begins. This Excel solver comes with a button called Check Sustainability. When you press that button, the Excel solver will check if, for the 13 species in your chosen ecosystem bundle, there exists a theoretically feasible solution to build a sustainable food chain for any 8 of the 13 species. If yes, you are lucky and can immediately proceed to the final step. If no sustainable food chain can be built from the 13 species you had pre-selected, this tool has prevented you from falling into that major trap I just described to you. Then you just have to select another bundle of producers and redo the steps for their corresponding 10 animals. The next piece of magic is that for your selected 13 species, they automatically appear with their relevant data in this pyramid screen. You of course drag and drop your 3 producers to the bottom of your food chain first, and then from the 10 animals you just have to select 5 animals to complete the food chain. That now is the only time where you actually need your brain, but given you already know that a solution exists and you can shift these boxes around with plenty of time available, building the food chain like this is way easier and safer than with a pen and a paper. The game offers you 35 minutes to complete it. If you go through like this, you can be done within 15 minutes. If your first selection of producers cannot produce a solution and you need to change it, you may need a maximum of further 10 minutes. In any case, this tool makes you safely crack the game and fast. Once you have successfully completed the food chain, you're almost done. You now need to log in your set of 8 selected species, and still you need to fulfill that second task, namely choose a suitable location in your coral reef or mountain ridge for your 8 species to survive. For this, you either check the top line of your Excel solver or you go to one of the cards of your selected species. Now, if in your game you are shown this extra line of environmental conditions which shows the same conditions for all 39 species, this is the only time you need to take it into account. Go to your conditions monitor and tick the 4 boxes for the 4 environmental conditions that matter in this game, hence depth, temperature, salt concentration and oxygen content. Now hover the location spot across the screen and find the location that fulfills all 4 conditions. That is now very easy and can be done within less than a minute. You are done with the ecosystem game now. Congratulations! You may ask where to get the Excel solver from. To be clear, it is a paid product that was developed by a third-party provider, for which you only need to pay if you successfully pass the McKinsey Solve Game. Besides that, I invite you to download my free consulting online test prep kit with further free resources for your McKinsey Solve test preparation. You'll find all links in the video description below this video. However, I'm not fully done here yet, as I want to share with you some further tips and strategies on how to tackle the ecosystem game, which apply whether you go for the trial and error or for the safe approach. I repeat that the non-significant part of the difficulty of the game arises from its traps and random data designed to confuse you, and I am trying to help you simplify. On the species selection. Again, when going through the species cards, their pictures do not matter, just their data. Also, some animals are herbivores, which only eat producers, some are carnivores, which only eat other animals, and some are omnivores, feeding on both types of food sources. For your game though, whenever you read about herbivores, carnivores or omnivores, immediately forget these categories. The only 2 categories you need to understand to solve the game are producers and animals, and then you can read out their food sources. When you later select the species for your food chain, be aware that high calories provided are always good and high calories needed are always bad. High calories provided increase the likelihood of you being able to build a sustainable food chain, while high calories needed effect the opposite. For most animals in your deck, their calories needed exceeds their calories provided. But some animals magically provide more calories than they need. I call these power animals that should suit your food chain well. Also, there's no need for false ambition. Once you have found 8 species that can peacefully coexist with each other and are sure of it, immediately finish the game. The Ecosystems Game's algorithm most likely rewards you for finishing it fast. No need to look for some better food chain, just log in your 8 species that work and go ahead. I had said that the safe and the fastest way to pass the game successfully is the Excel solver. For those of you who don't know this trick, to speed up swapping between the game and the Excel solver, press Alt and Tab on your Windows computer. This way you can swap the fastest between 2 applications when you copy-paste the data from the game into your spreadsheet. Now, some of you may smartly ask, Jack, what about the process score? It is said that the game somehow records my mouse clicks and movements to derive the so-called process score. So is it safe to run Microsoft Excel on the side as a second program? Truth to be told, as said at the beginning, nobody knows what exactly this storied process score truly does. First of all, you want to make sure that you meet the game's objective and derive a correct result, which will most probably score you the most brownie points. Second, plenty of candidates use this Excel solver on the side and pass the game successfully. However, I hear you and would actually have the same thought. Given I'm a perfectionist and to be super safe, I recommend you to, for your game, borrow a second laptop from a friend for the duration of your test, on which you open the Excel solver. This way, however smart the process score facility of the ecosystem game is, it cannot discern if you copy the data to a paper or to a second computer. Now, this approach is fully bulletproof and the one I recommend. Now, I also want to give you 3 tips on the second task in your game, the selection of the location. First, a fun fact is that 95% of the game, your attention will be focused on the species descriptions, while the other elements on your screen you will just need at the end of the assignment when you select the location. Second, even though your environmental conditions monitor displays 7 or 8 different conditions to you, only 2 or 4 of them matter to you, and to a different extent. The other conditions you can safely ignore for the entire game. Third, and very importantly, do not begin the game by selecting the location. This is a very bad practice because there are many locations on the map that have such parameter values under which none of the 39 species in your deck could survive. Even if you start by picking a location that caters to the needs of one of the 3 species bundles, this is not good, because at the beginning of the game you cannot be yet sure if for these species and their ecosystem a sustainable food chain exists. So always try to build the sustainable food chain first, and once you are done with that, then select the suitable location for your bundle of 8 species to survive together. I will share further advice on how to prepare for, practice and run through the ecosystem game, so bear with me. Ecosystem game. Rules recap.